Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode, Rapid Review. Appreciate everybody joining live over on YouTube, over on X. As always, chat is open. So if you have questions, comments, and later when we go through some stocks, if there's tickers that you want me to bring up and take a look at, just feel free to drop it in the comments. September was a hot month, really, really hot month for a couple weeks, but cooled down this week. So we're going to take a look at what went on and get ready to trade for next week. So without further ado, it's time for another rapid review. All right. As always, there's the disclaimer. You guys know the deal. Educational purposes only, not financial, investment, or trading advice. So read through that. You've been warned. All right. Current state of the market direction. We are in an uptrend. We are also in a power trend. So despite the down week, with that all stayed intact, which is super positive. Looking at distribution days, the S&P distribution days current count is 4. NASDAQ current count is also 4. So when we jump over to the distribution day tracker, one of the changes I made, I think I did this last week, but just to remind everybody, anything that's in the black font, those are stalling days. Anything that is in the grayish font, those are regular distribution days when looking at the market school rules. And then you have this little note down here, which doesn't apply this week. But getting into what happened, S&P actually lost 3 distribution days. We lost the 815, the 819, and the 820 distribution days. All that due to time, 25 trading days since that day occurred, dropping off of the count. So super positive. We knew that was coming. Not as great as having the price action wash it out, but still just shows that those days have been a while since they mattered. In terms of other things that went on this week, we did gain a distribution day on Thursday, down on volume. This is that 925 day. So that gives us that 4 count, as we see on the S&P. For the NASDAQ, the 9.5 stalling day, that dropped off due to price action. We were 5% above the close of that distribution day. However, that did not affect the actual count because that activated this 9.10 stalling day as per market school rules. So no change to the count, but needless to say, still good to see a day drop off, especially due to price action. And on the NASDAQ, though, we had Tuesday and Thursday both down on volume, as you see here, adding to the count, which then also gives us that 4 count, the same as the S&P. So going into next week, looking at distribution days, we don't see a high probability of really anything falling off. There is a possibility that we get the September 2nd day dropping off. If we could see a movement from here, even just intra-week up over 1.45%, then that would drop off this day. But other than that, nothing dropping off due to time, and not a very high likelihood that we're going to see anything else drop off in terms of price action. Looking at this week, like we said, down for the week. The S&P was down 0.31%. NASDAQ was down 0.65%. And the Dow is down 0.15%. For the year, the S&P up 12.96%, NASDAQ up 16.43%, and the Dow up 8.70%. So NASDAQ got hit the worst this week. No surprise, a little more volatile. Those types of growth stocks did get hit a little worse. And with all that, still the NASDAQ leading out the year. Moving averages. So we'll take a closer look at the kind of interaction with the price and the moving averages when we get over to the actual index charts. But looking at what we see here, the big thing was we had broke below the 10-day simple moving average, but we were still able to close above it on every single index minus the Russell 2000. So just barely squeaking above it on the NASDAQ and on the Dow, but getting a decent amount above it on the S&P. And then everything else we're sitting above. So positive to see that all green here minus that 10 on the Russell 2000. All right, so like we were saying, let's jump over and let's take a look at the indexes. As always, we'll start off on the NASDAQ, and we will start off on the daily. All right, so you could see beginning of the week started off strong, continuing that uptrend. We were up on Monday, closed near those highs. Volume was a little lighter than we had here, but this Friday was actually a quad witching day, so that didn't really matter too much. Overall, just positive to see that we came up towards those highs, creating new highs, closing in at the high, close to the highs of the day. But then, as you can see, we've been on this kind of really, really strong run from this basically break going back to the beginning of September of the 21, and it's just been ripping higher and higher and higher. And what we kind of expected was eventually we're going to see a pullback, and we started to have that happen as we pulled down, broke below the 10-day simple moving average, came into the 21, didn't touch it, but came into it. And then we ended up finding some kind of support there. As you can see, as we came down on Thursday, we did close out the day pretty strong, closing near those highs just underneath the 10-day simple moving average. And then we kind of followed up on Friday, a little bouncing around intraday, but again, finished strong, closing near those highs and just squeaking above that 10-day simple moving averages. So very, very positive, despite how we kind of rolled over in the beginning and towards the end of the week. We were able to find a little glimmer of some hope, finding the support above that 21-day simple moving average and then closing out strong to get back above that 10-day simple moving average. So positive action there in terms of what we saw on the daily. Let's take a look at the weekly. Zoom in for you guys there. So the weekly, we closed in the 48% range. So not in the upper half, but as you say, with how we did through on the daily, still positive action there, but not that we saw us closing near those highs and kind of recovering from all of that. This was the first down week that we had in September. All these other weeks, like we were talking about, were very, very strong. And other than that, really not much else to say on the weekly. So let's talk some key levels. On the upside, it's pretty straightforward. The first thing is I would like to see some follow through here, right? We talked about how we pulled in, we found support, we had this glimmer of hope on Friday. Now, can we continue to follow through on that and get more substantially above the 10-day, show maybe a little bit of volume as we come up here, see some stocks starting to show some strength to show that this is indeed just what we hope it is a pullback. And then from there, we're looking at those all-time highs as we normally are when we kind of have these pullbacks. Can we get back above that all-time high without resistance? On the downside, obviously, can we hold above that 10-day simple moving average that we were just talking about? That's a very, very normal thing that we look to stay above. The Wednesday low, that's the next real area that I'm looking at. Can we stay above that Wednesday low? Even intraday, or do we have to kind of break down below it? If we do break down below it intraday and it maybe is just a shakeout and then we kind of come back above, not too concerning. But if we close below that low, that's going to be very, very concerning, at least in the short term. And then from there, we have the 21-day EMA, always a very, very important key level to look at on the downside. Excuse me. From there, the big level I'm going to look at is this August 13th high that we had. And the reason I'm looking at that is this was like that kind of base pattern we almost had, this choppy action where the market was definitely not an easy dollar market. And then we kind of recovered. And then as we broke out, things got much easier. If we're able to pull back and get back into this choppy zone, it's going to be a real, real negative sign. So if we do get down towards those levels, can we at least stay above this kind of sideways action that we had dating back to the beginning of August? And then finally from there, which is always just kind of that line in the sand for me, is that 50-day simple moving average. Anytime we break below that, more likely than not, I'm going to be in cash. All right, we'll look at the S&P just from a chart perspective real quickly. Okay, there's a high level view, but you can see almost identical action as the NASDAQ. And there you have on the weekly, almost identical on the weekly as well. So let's jump over to Deepvue and let's take a look at the themes, what went on in the industry groups and the themes for the week. Look, it has not changed at all. You can see it on the year-to-date side here. The moves that the miners have had, specifically gold and silver, is just head and shoulders above all the rest. And that continued on Friday, it continued for the week, and it's been continuing over the last month. If it is getting pulled out of the ground, some sort of metal, mostly gold and silver being the strongest, it has done well this year and is continuing to do well. So definitely one of the hottest groups to keep an eye on. Other than that, the big area too, your utilities, your oil and gas, energy, solar had some strength this week, especially on... Where do we have solar? You can see even solar starting to climb up the ranks on the monthly basis. Those nuclear plays, a lot of the stuff that's driving AI, that's driving the Bitcoin mining, things like that, all those energy sources are performing very, very well. And we saw that this week as well. But yeah, other than that, I think that's the big standout for this week. Semiconductors held up pretty good. You can see they did very well, finishing number 3rd for the week. Quantum did rebound, and they did fairly well despite a couple of pullbacks. So overall, the trend of what we're seeing in terms of the industry groups hasn't really changed that much. The big thing to note is just miners continue to crush it week after week after week. All right, so let's jump over and let's just talk some exposure levels. This week's exposure, a little different than normal because I think this week's exposure is going to be really based on how your stocks performed this week. And the reason I say that is I think many people going into the beginning of this week were fully invested like myself, and varying on how those stocks you were holding held up this week probably shows what you went going into the end of the week and how you're going to be going into next week. What stocks did you get stopped out of? What stocks held up and didn't break any of your trailing or just your stops in general? Or if you're somebody who was taking a lot of profits on the way up, maybe you trimmed before things got a little rough for the week. That is one of those things that I think going into next week is to keep in mind. So if things are holding up great for you, and they continue to hold up great, there's not much to change. If you did, like myself, get stopped out of a few positions, you still had a few left in, the big thing is I don't think right now, and at least myself, I want to be diving to take all that cash that I have on the side and start putting it back right into the market. Things do look positive. Friday was good to see that bounce. Does look right now overall like a pullback. But at the same time, there are a lot of stocks that got hit pretty bad. There are a lot of trades that did come into the 50-day simple moving average or lower than how the indexes acted and are underperforming the indexes. So not to jump in too early, not to go from, let's say you're 60% invested right now and to try to put all that 40% in on Monday and then have the market continue to roll over and get you stopped out of everything. The big thing here, I think, is focus on top quality setups, focus on the leading industries, focus on the best stocks. Don't go chasing those kind of B tier setups. This has not proven itself to be an easy dollar market just yet. I kind of break things down into these pullbacks in the next rally. This rally hasn't confirmed itself yet. So I think personally, have that list ready. If we see a ton of strength on Monday, ton of volume, day closes strong, a ton of stocks are breaking out, then okay, now you could start taking some of those trades, but I wouldn't be ready to just dive right back in. September was a super, super easy month. It doesn't last forever. It's not always going to be like that. So don't carry that, environment into every single week because it's not always going to be like that. Also, the big thing with how this market has continued to go up and up and up, it's been going up for a while now. Every single time we get one of these pullbacks, it becomes more and more likely that it's not just a shorter pullback to the 10 to the 21. The probability of it being a more bigger correction gets higher and higher. Same way with the stock. You get an early stage base, pullback is going to be very differently looked at than you have a late stage base on a stock that's gone on a big, big run. Higher likelihood that's going to go in through a bigger correction. So I look at the market in the same exact way as I look at those stocks. And right now, the market has been running up for a very, very long time and hasn't really been tested too much besides a little bit we had during August. Other than that, that is all I have for exposures. So let's jump back over to Deepvue. Let's go over some stocks. I got a couple stocks from everybody over in Discord. Let's do that. And I forgot to mention, if you don't know, I am a Deepvue partner. This is this tool that I use for all of my stock analysis, fundamentals, charting, everything. If you're interested, I have in YouTube, there's a link in the description. And on X, I have a link in my bio. Right now, there's a wait list. That wait list should be opening up in about 2-3 weeks. So get your name on that if you're interested. I also have a discount code associated with my link that's on both the YouTube and on X. So if you're interested in checking it out, make sure you take advantage of that. All right, let's start off Chad. Shout out to Chad over in Discord. Wanted us to look at APH. All right. From a fundamental perspective, so you can see I have my fundamentals here and down here. Quarterly, very, very strong. I like what I'm seeing here. This is quarterly. We got 61% on average for an increase in the quarterly area, and then on an average sales increase, excuse me, on a quarterly basis, 44.68. Definitely, you can see the accelerating. That's what this blue line is, sales down here. So do like to see that. From an annual basis, things look also healthy. Institutional sponsorship, we're seeing that increasing. This is basically relative strength, comparing this stock on these time frames to all other stocks in the database. Not amazing on a 12-month basic, good. I like that 80, 89, 90, overall good. On a 3-month and 1 month, not exactly perfect, but still nothing wrong there. ROE is good. Overall, these are the Deepvue fundamental ratings. You're seeing a lot of 90s in here. Very, very positive action there. And the 3-month ranking, number 5, electrical components. So this company, let's see what we do. Manufacturers and markets electrical, electronics, fiber optic connectors, harsh environments, fiber optics, high speed. So this looks like a lot of the kind of communication aspects of what might be going on with AI and data centers and things like that, as well as just communication in general. And we have seen communication do fairly well. I don't know a ton about this company, so I'm not going to go further than that. Looking at the chart, though, let's go to the weekly. This thing has gone on a very, very strong run. You can see basically straight off the bottoms of the market, this is just shot up. And we've had a nice 120% increase. So good to see that in a confirmed uptrend, above all those moving averages. From a daily perspective, looking at the daily chart, to me, this one's just extended. Hey, if you own it, I see no reason to get out of it. This was Chad. I see no reason to get out of this if you own it. If you don't own it, I think this is definitely one to watch. But I would like to see things tighten up a little bit to give me an area to assess my risk a little better. And if not, an actual kind of correction and some sort of base and pullback. Maybe back here, this could have been a good area to get in. Looking at the highs here, the lows here, this kind of sideways action over here, and then right over on the 9th, that breakout there. I think that would have been a good entry, especially how tight we were trading with those moving averages. Even the test of the 50 is like a little shakeout. So, but other than that, this is one that I would just keep an eye on. If you own it, great. If you don't, just watch it. But don't go chasing up here where this could easily pull back below the 21. And if that was to happen from the current price to, let's just say, even down here, you can start to get a pretty big pullback even to the 50, I think would be normal. You're starting to get to 8%, not the worst. Overall, this is just one of those setups, especially with how long it's run up. I would rather be patient and wait for some sort of correction. And again, anybody that's on X, anybody on YouTube, feel free to drop any stocks you want me to bring up live. All right, next one we got Carlos, another one from Discord, wants us to look at Hood. This is a stock that I owned early in the year, got stopped out of it. I think it was back here, if I remember correctly, with the close below the 21. But really, really one of the leaders of this market. The fundamentals, I think most people know. Everything on this looks beautiful, so I'm not going to bore everybody with that. Like we said, the weekly, it's gone up, just shot up. Been a really, really strong leader. Pulled in, and we kind of had this little base pattern that formed that when you look at it on the daily, we pulled back into the 50, kind of broke below the 10 to 21-day moving average. We saw this little peak in volume as we jumped up here. And then we kind of squatted as we got out to all-time highs, pulled back in again, and then broke out again. Now we're kind of squatting again. From a typical CANSLIM perspective, this is kind of, I would say extended out from, it's very close out of that 5% buy zone. So if you're looking at this from a typical CANSLIM perspective, you're just buying in the higher end range of what would be this pivot area here. From a swing trade perspective, I would like to see this maybe tighten up around the 10 and 21 a little more. Maybe have the 21 come back up into here and look at that. But you are getting that, like, we broke out, pulled back, came up, pulled back a little higher. So overall, this is one of the stocks. There's probably many ways to trade it. Like I said, traditional canceling people, you're kind of buying in the high end of the breakout range. For a swing trader, I'd probably be looking a little more patient, let maybe the 21 come up a little bit tighter, or maybe get some tight action across these days right here before I jumped in. But needless to say, we all listen to know this is a leader. So if you can find a way that you trade that fits this to get you in and assess risk, nothing wrong with that. All right. Oops. Next up, we have LIF. Also, another one from Chad over on Discord. Stock that I owned, you could kind of see, I have some notes in here on when I've been watching it. I've honestly been watching this one since the beginning of this market. I did get in, as you can see, a little bit early, kind of got shaken out. Realized I had jumped into this one a little too early. It was kind of getting a little overzealous because of how much I've seen people using this product, putting it on their kids' phones. This is the company that people have an app tracking their kids, their family members, things like that. So very, very popular amongst a lot of people. And unfortunately, let me jump in a little bit too early. But needless to say, didn't lose sight of it, was able to get on. And this has been the easiest stock for me to hold this year. It has just completely rode and not even closed below that 21-day EMA pretty much this whole time. It almost actually kind of closed right at it right here, but didn't shake me out. So in terms of getting in on this has just been on a bigger run. I'd be really patient, let this correct. Like I said, it's just been kind of trending up and up and up, pulling back, bouncing, pulling back, bouncing. Maybe if you're somebody that likes trading off a bounce off of 21, you can wait for another one to happen. But right now we are, about 7% off of the 21. So it's starting to extend itself off of that 21 already. Keep an eye on it. I think this is a kind of sleeper leader that a lot of people aren't paying attention to, or I don't see a lot of people talking about. That has been one of the easiest stocks for me to hold this year. But yep, still have a position in this. All right. And again, if you guys have anything you want to add, just throw it in any of those chats. I'm also going to bring up, this is just my personal one that I wanted to highlight here that I do not own, but I am watching, is Dash. Been watching this stock a lot. I did trade it a couple times throughout this year. Do not currently own a position. Strong fundamentals on this one. Look, this is changing the way that people get takeout. I myself used it today. It is very, very popular. I think this is one of the leaders in the space, along with Uber Eats and some of the other apps. From a chart perspective, though, we'll look at the weekly first. Sustained uptrend. This has been in a nice, uptrend. And then now you can see that it kind of corrected and formed this base over here. So we got a traditional cup with handle is really what we're looking at. We had the peak over here. We pulled back. We had a depth of 16. So really, really shallow, which is nice. 16% pullback, a little over 16% pullback. Then we've kind of came into the 50. Never closed below it, just broke below the 10 to 21. We started rising up on the right-hand side. As we started to come towards this top right here, we've kind of pulled back and had this handle start to form as we pull back into the 21. So just textbook cup with handle, really, really watching this one for potential entry. Personally, I'm probably, because of what's going on in the market, I'm going to wait for that handle breakout right here and maybe get it a little higher off those 10 and the 21-day moving averages for more traditional CANSLIM base entry. You said, when will they start accepting new users? It's going to be mid-October. So get your name on that wait list. Like I said, you're on YouTube, so just go to the description of this video. There's a link there. Click that, and then you can put in your email. They'll contact you when it's your chance to sign up. And then the code Bobby, BOBBY 12, all capitals, will get you 12% off of your initial membership. I also do the onboarding calls for them, so if this does look a little complicated, fear not, I will help you out. All right. If nobody else has anything else, I'll cover one more, which is Palantir, another highly talked about stock in this market that has been a very, very strong leader. has continued to go up and up and up. And this giving you a prime example as when you feel that this thing's just going to keep going up without you, there will be a chance to get back in if this is going to be a longer term leader. And what's kind of happened here, look, again, the fundamentals, we all know the fundamentals. If you're following the stock are great, so I'm not going to bore you with that. But here we kind of rolled over, broke the 10, broke the 21, and then we started hovering right around that 50, kind of forming this nice bottom right here. Real tight action. Gave the opportunity for, I think, a lot of swing traders to get in here, and then now has kind of rose and is starting to kind of roll back over again, giving you that kind of cup and that handle action. Ideally, would like to see this pull into the 21. Could give you a possibility to do a little kind of swing trade, early entry type of entry on the handle down here. But if not, I'm really looking at the high over here for what would possibly be like a cup with a handle breakout. Again, big leader, a name that a lot of people wish they were able to get in the beginning of the year because it went on a great run. Even if you go from there, went on a 100% run from April. But here it is. Here's that chance that this is forming a true base. The fundamentals and everything still look good. I don't think anything in the environment has changed to say that the stock isn't a company that is going to be something that is a part of really what I guess our government is doing in terms of the technology and surveillance and stuff like that. So yeah, keep an eye on that. For me, like I said, hopefully a pullback to the 21, maybe some tight action for more of a swing trade entry, early entry, and then if not, looking at the kind of handle entry over here. But I would like to see a little more downside. You know, it's only been a couple days. Can't always get what you want, but just keeping an eye on that. All right, if nobody has anything that they want to add in terms of stocks, let's finish this out. So my final thoughts. Look, the trend is up. Very simple. As cautious as I probably do sound, I'm cautiously optimistic. No one knows when this trend is going to end. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, despite everybody saying this market can't go on any longer. Despite Powell, which is what a lot of people are attributing to the pullback that we had this week, saying that things are overvalued. We know as growth stock traders, very often when you look at that, things are overvalued. The market is kind of looking forward and seeing that these could be big players in the future. So that being said, we have been on a long run. The market continues to go up and up and up. Eventually it is going to pull back. And like we said, the longer we go up, the more likely a pullback is a higher probability. So here, just keep riding the trend. That's what it really comes down to. If we can find support here, that's going to be super positive. If we continue to break down lower, then yeah, likely you're going to be stopped at a lot of trades. Oh, and I see a couple stocks coming through here now too. All right, I'll jump over to those. But yeah, in terms of my last note, great times don't last forever. Cautiously optimistic. I want to see this market follow through, and I want to see the environment of stocks become a little bit easier and not see as many things kind of rolling over and crumbling in terms of the growth stocks that we trade. All right, let's jump back over to Deepvue. I don't want to leave you hanging because I see that you have a couple. All right, let's look at crowd quick. CrowdStrike. Yeah, a lot of people know this name. Talking about cybersecurity, and this industry group has done fairly well. From an annual perspective, the earnings weren't that great, and even from a quarterly perspective, the earnings weren't that great. So something to take note of. But this is definitely one of the big players in the cybersecurity space. To me, just looking at this right here, classic coupled handle, right? We broke down here. We did go a little deeper. Let's see. So this was about a 22% correction, breaking down below the 50, pulling all the way into the 200. So if from a moving average perspective, we pulled in pretty deep. From a percentage perspective, not too bad. Then we kind of came up on the right-hand side. We saw the volume increase. And then now we've seen this textbook low volume kind of handle pulling back in here, coming into the 10, and we'll see how it does with if it comes in the 21 and that can meet. This one's pretty simple for me. For you traditional CANSLIM traders, I'm looking at these highs right here. and trying to see this traditional cup with handle type of breakout. For you swing traders, ideally want to see things tighten up around here, I think. So keep an eye on that. Hey, what's going on, investing? Big shout out, another Discord member over there. That is one of the things, trying to keep track, as you guys all have different names in Discord and YouTube and X. So, but appreciate you saying what's up. But yeah, real simple on the CrowdStrike one. Good one to keep an eye on, though, especially with how we've seen Cyber do go. FUTU, FUTU, however you want to call it. This one right here, another one of those stocks that wasn't the easiest trade. I think a lot of people were getting chopped around in this and stopped out in some breakouts and things like that. But it did kind of shape itself up, and has been another stock that has done well in this market. The fundamentals in this are healthy. We pulled into the 50-day simple moving average. But for now, I want to see things kind of either A, for a swing trade perspective, maybe go sideways a little longer, and give us a little bit more time to wash some people out from a left to right perspective. From a CANSLIM perspective, I want to see this form more of a base, build that right-hand side, maybe tighten up as we approach those all-time highs. Definitely a name I think is worth watching for sure. All right. And we'll do one more. ZS. All right. Zscaler. So this is another one of those cloud security, cybersecurity players. This one, fundamentals looking a little bit better. We're seeing some on the annual basis, positive here. Quarterly basis, not so great. Sales increasing. Institutional sponsorship increasing. This is kind of, again, one of those stocks that it's the fundamentals sometimes with these cybersecurities aren't as strong as of late, but they are overall turning around. Let's see. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. From a technical perspective, we're on the daily still. Strong uptrend. Now we're starting to form this big base. We have a peak to trough of just under 18%. So pretty shallow, nice base pullback here. This has your 10, 21, and 50 super tight here. From a swing trade, I think that Friday would have been a beautiful entry on this right here. Reason being is, even if you look at that prior low to here, you basically have less than a 6% move to that, breaking those moving averages that it has been as of late, basically showing as a area of support underneath it. We have this long sideways action, and just to zoom in, yeah, and then we had a little peak in the volume as we took out this high right here. Things have tightened up. So you can see just the overall volatility kind of contracting and tightening over here too, from left to right, which is positive. So I think that Zscaler, definitely Friday would have been a pretty good entry, especially because you could see it actually takes out all of the highs in this sideways action on Friday as well, while also being pretty tight to those moving averages. And yeah, I think that was, if you had entered this on Friday, great. If not, just keep an eye on it and see what it does. And from a CANSLIM perspective, you have, this is possibly just forming a base. So keep an eye on it. All right. Doesn't look like we have anything else in here. Like I said, I already did my kind of end of the whole thing recap. And I appreciate everybody coming out and taking a look and commenting on everything. All right, let's finish this off. There you have, for those on X, there's the YouTube link. The replay is always on YouTube, especially if you joined late. For those on YouTube, there's my X profile, if you want to check that out. Discord, I keep mentioning that. The Discord link is in the description of the YouTube. And if you want on X, just shoot me a message and I'll send you a link to join the Discord. We're over 1,100 people now. All sorts of growth stock traders, primarily CANSLIM, Minervini, swing trade style like that as well. But yeah, a lot of great people in there, as you guys can see, chiming in on this chat. A lot of people that are willing to help other people trade too. So no matter what level you are, there's people from a professional level to people that literally started trading like this week. And it's all free. Goal is just for have a good community for people to help each other. Other than that, that's all I got. All right, everybody. Stay disciplined going into next week.